You are listening to the audio project with Deena Tearney. This podcast is recorded from my office in downtown Honolulu and welcomes you to join in the conversations I have on technology, business, and all things Salesforce. Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes, we're ready to go.
All right. Well, today we have John Leong from Kupu on our podcast. Thank you for being here, John.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I think for starters, what would be good just for the audience who may not know a little bit about, who you are, if you could start off with just an introduction to what your current role is at Kupu, what you're responsible for.
Sure. So my current role is I'm CEO at Kupu, and that really focuses on the long-term strategy, building up the partnerships of what we're doing, and helping oversee the leadership team.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to spend some time. I've known you for several years, and I'll never forget when I went into. We had a meeting going on, and you had. I think we came in and intersected ourselves in the middle of a leadership meeting that you were having, and I remember being really impressed with your team. I know we didn't know what was going on, but we saw all kinds of visions and things up on the walls, and I thought, wow, this is a really cool team and organization that was led by you. So that's kind of some of the context from my background and observing you. The other thing I remember noticing is within your programs, just how people had gone through Kupu programs and then became part of your team, which I felt was a really cool indicator of what an amazing team and company and organization that you have, or not-for-profit. So, yeah. So I guess for context, I think it would be good to just learn a little bit more about what Kupu is, how it started, and where you're at now.
Sure. So Kupu engages young adults in service around conservation and sustainability, and we target the age group of about 16 to 24 years of age. And I guess the mission is kind of twofold. One is to get young people involved in service today, and they're doing amazing work across our state and other parts of the Pacific now. And I think the longer term goal is to build up next generation leaders and giving them the skill sets, the experiences, and the connections necessary to move forward into careers or higher education, and even just to develop the mindset of what it means to be a servant leader in our community, that it's not just about ourselves, that as we succeed, our success goes to raising the tides for everyone. And so that's really the heart behind what Kupu does.
How did you come up with the idea? When did it start?
Well, actually, like all great things, it was it's because of great mentors in my own life. So I look back at my own personal journey, and I started getting into conservation in the 90s when I was in a program like Kupu. Actually, it was the predecessor of Kupu, called the Youth Conservation Corps. And Mike Wilson, who is a Supreme Court justice and previously was the chairman of DLNR, had started the concept at DLNR in the 90s, and I was one of the first teams. It was a summer program, and we got to work all around the island, got to go to Kauai, and just got exposed to some of the issues that our islands are facing from a conservation perspective, as well as put in a lot of hard work to help to correct some of the challenges we're facing. So that includes like invasive species control, which is like hiking in really remote areas with chainsaws and axes and saw and Pulaskis and other tools, and then removing non-native species, building trails, and planting native species. And for me, it was just such a beautiful experience and eye-opener. So that was kind of like I think as a young person, I realized what we could do, and what I was capable of as a person, and also developed a passion for the outdoors. So fast forward the tape a little bit, I went off and I ended up studying business, which is another passion of mine, and got to study at Wharton at University of Pennsylvania. And at the end of that, though, I came to a crux, kind of a crossroads. And I think one of the leadership challenges we all go through is how are we going to apply the experiences and the talents that we have in this world. And sometimes it's about just moving our career upwards and forward. But having grown up in Hawaii, having had a family who had a family business that was really about building up community, and then having that being juxtaposed to having an experience in a business school where, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it was just really focused on career and pathway and, succeeding at whatever we, however we can get there. I realized that I didn't want to use my experiences just to advance myself, and I had gotten opportunities in New York and San Francisco. But I decided that, at the end of the day, I felt rooted here, and I wanted to use my skill sets to make Hawaii better, to take care of our environment, to build the next generation. And also, I was in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, but sometimes you didn't see that brotherly love on the streets. And so I did not want to know that on my watch, the Aloha State lost that Aloha spirit. So I really felt that part of my, building up organizations, would be to come back and do work that would help to perpetuate that through the leadership and through the work that we did. So that was kind of the history, and I came back. We started one company, Pono Pacific, and that's been growing and doing amazing work in conservation and land management, now in ag and energy. And Kupu was one of our first projects that we started running in 2001. We took over the Youth Conservation Corps program that I was in, so it was full circle, and we had a small program of 16 kids. But by 2005, we had over 100 young people in our programs, and funders were coming in like Kamehameha Schools, Department of Health, DLNR. And we decided that as we saw young people now very interested in this career pathway because they got exposure, we needed to be intentional. So we started a separate nonprofit, and by 2007, Kupu was incorporated and had our 501c3. And since then it's moving forward.
I love it. That's really cool. And I like how it started. I didn't know the story, by the way, so I appreciate you telling me that.
Sure.
I mean, it's interesting that you talk about business, because one of the things with Salesforce, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Benioff's story, and how he is all about how when he left Oracle and he started Salesforce, it was about not just how can corporations increase the bottom line, but how can they be a platform for change?
Yes.
And that's really what he's created, this new model within Salesforce that's kind of centered on that. So it's interesting that you say that, because I think he had the same mindset that you just described.
And I think that it's really neat because it's becoming more commonplace. When I finished at Wharton, I had to make up my own focus in entrepreneurial management and environmental policy. Now there's a whole social entrepreneurial focus you can study at Wharton. But things are changing, and it's really neat to see people like Mark Benioff being able to drive those changes. We see triple bottom line is another thing where it's planet, profit, and people that you're trying to impact through your work. You don't have to compromise doing one versus the other. And circular economy, too, is another common term where we're really doing things that are going to elevate the economy and grow both the businesses but also the community at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, we actually just signed up for the Pledge 1%, which is an impact program. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it started with Salesforce's 1-1-1 model, which is similar to what you described, of 1% back in product, equity, and time.
That's amazing.
And we signed up for it because we've had an impact program where our team gives back. But I will say this, many of our clients are also, I'm encouraging a lot of our clients to do the same thing and find ways that they can give back that aligns with their business. And it's funny, I think last week somebody said that they have brought on some of Kupu's interns, and I was like, and I was like, oh, cool.
That's wonderful.
So maybe you could share with our audience, for those that might be in business, and say, hey, tell us more about what Kupu does and how maybe there might be an alignment to the internship programs that you guys have that they might be interested in.
Well, it's really exciting because what we've seen is the programs, as young people serve, as they're getting out into the resources or working on sustainability issues, they're starting to discover some of their passions and their purpose in life, as well as their potential. And I always say that I don't think we can take full credit for everything because it was already in them. There's already also other mentors, but I think what we are able to do is give them experiences and put them in situations with great people that will help them to unlock more of the potential of who they are. And that's really led to success in finding next generation leaders being developed. And Senator Mazie Hirono wanted to see some of our programs, and so we took her to DLNR's base yard in Makiki, and they have about 40 people working there. Half of them were either Kupu alumni or current members.
Oh, wow.
So half of the workforce there, and it just kind of goes to show that type of impact. And about 88% of our alumni are either in a related field or seeking employment in a related field. So we do a survey every 1 and 5 year intervals after someone leaves us. And I think that it shows the strength of our programs to really help get young people into these meaningful pathways into employment. But it's also really neat too, because we're seeing people that are entrepreneurs being developed. So the whole the Biki rideshare program, Jasmine, one of our alumni, helped in the founding team to start that up. And we also are seeing young social entrepreneurs being developed. So one of our alums, Peleke on Kauai, has started up his own nonprofit and social enterprise around Native Hawaiian fish pond. So it's really cool to see that it's seeding that. And then finally, we have young people that are going into roles that are not just field-based, they're in management areas, and even in some unrelated to where Kupu, their experience with Kupu. Like we had one person that went into architecture, and teaching is another area that we've had common folks. But they're gaining transferable skills that they can take with them, and as they're doing it, they're also gaining a heart for the community around them. So they bring that into industries, whether it be into law, teaching, medicine, whatever it might be.
Cool. Can you give an example of what it's like on one of the programs? Because I
Sure.
remember I'm familiar with some of the programs from a couple years ago, but the word resilience, I mean, you guys really put these students to the test and really teach them a lot. And I just wanted to hear what would it be like if someone were to join, maybe you pick one of the programs and just say, what would be the day in a life of one of those programs?
So I think one of the, another thing that I think is growing is that term grit that you get, because there is a sense of endurance that has to occur. Our most common programs are in conservation, and we have young people all across our state, in Samoa, Midway, California, that are working in natural resource projects. And a day for them would be, we start relatively early, around 7:30, and they'll get out into the field. And especially during the summer and fall months, it can be hot, and but they'll be getting out there. Examples of some of the work might be helping to restore albatross along the coastal area, so helping to do monitoring for chicks and what could be affecting their health and life. It could be working in a fish pond or a lo'i, doing cultural work. And some of it's pretty muddy. I mean, they're getting in the dirt and, all over
I think
them.
I've seen pictures of you pretty muddy, so I'm thinking you still get out there sometime
every
too.
once in a while I get the privilege of that. They're hiking long distances. They get to go into the back country above like Makua Rim, or on the top of Mount Ka'ala, or, Mauna Kea on Hawaii Island, Molokai, Kalaupapa. And they're getting to go to these really remote places that not many people have access to. But they get to work in them. They get to know these areas intimately, and they help to restore them too. And sometimes, to get to, let's say they've put an endangered species back into the wild, to water it during the summer months, they'll have to bring huge, 8-gallon jugs, which each gallon's 8 pounds. So they're carrying 64 pounds of water, hiking it for several miles into the back country. And but it just shows you that dedication that they have to help protect our resources, and then also that capacity to do things. So then when they're, if anyone here is an employer and they want to hire a Kupu alum, they know this young person has capacity. I mean, sitting behind a desk and figuring out tough stuff becomes easy.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I could see how that would change a person. Doing 3 months and feeling super connected and very tangible impact right in front of your eyes every day would certainly change you. And when you think about all the hard work that goes into it, it's the same concepts, I guess, that you would apply in a job, right?
Right.
Those
It's
things.
so true.
Yeah.
And
Very cool.
One of the really neat things too is that we have a program down in our new center in Kewalo Basin, and for anyone that's listening that hasn't been there, it's a really cool space that what we found is about 80% of our members came from middle to low income families, and particularly there are a subsect of our members that had a hard time obtaining jobs because they didn't have their diploma. So we actually renovated and built out a new center that came online last year. It was a 7-year process, a long process, but we were able to raise with the community support about $6 million to renovate this building. And so it's a LEED equivalent building. It produces its own energy, has EV stations, model sustainability.
Amazing.
But the really cool part is it has a diploma program there, and so our young people there have many of them have dropped out of school. And why I bring that up is because that's for an example of day to day, and these young people to me are superheroes. They just to get there is a struggle in the morning. They don't have transportation. Some of them might be homeless.
Right.
Some of them are coming from unstable situations, and some of them are having difficult family situations, and so just to be there is a huge thing. But then to go out and get work experiences, then also study and get their diploma too, is huge. And when they succeed, it's like we're all cheering for them. And then they can go in. We have a full culinary program down at the center. It's on the waterfront, and it doubles as an event space that is a social enterprise that the youth run. So we've had the State of the City address there. We've had high level investor meetings, board meetings there. We've had community groups and fundraisers for other nonprofits. So it's just been an amazing site. But the really cool thing is it's run by our young people.
Love that.
Too,
That's
so
very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. I also learned that you are a 2019 Obama Foundation Fellow, and I wanted to learn more about what that meant for you, and maybe at Kupu too. There's probably an impact there. So
it's been really cool. I feel so blessed and so honored having gotten selected. I mean, there was a cohort in 2018, and then I'm in the 2019 cohort. It's a 2-year program, but they said there was like over 20,000 people that had applied for the 40 positions, and so and I'm the only one from Hawaii for the fellows program, and so it was very humbling, and to then meet other fellows from around the world. There's 10 in my cohort that are from international, and 10 from the U.S. But to see the caliber and the quality of leadership that they bring, it's like, why? You sure you selected the right person? So I was, but and I just can't say enough too about the Obamas. They have such generous spirits to them. Their whole focus in wanting to do this is to eclipse their own leadership. That they want to develop leadership in the world that's going to be game changing and needle shifting, so that what they're doing is eclipsed by the work that they're able to support in other leaders. So it's been neat. I mean, some of the highlights for me have definitely sitting with Michelle Obama was one of them, and just hearing her candid conversations. It was funny. She found out that I had 4 children, and she started bowing to me. I'm like, Michelle, please, Mrs. Obama, please don't do that. I feel a little bit awkward. And she said, Barack wanted to have a 3rd child, and I told him his presidency is his 3rd child. So that was really, it's been really neat to hear. And just the inspiration that they're providing. And, I think in her book, Becoming, she talks a little bit about this, but she shared a little bit more about how, as leaders, it's just not going to fail, that you're going to sometimes feel disappointed by others, that people will, not have the same integrity that you'd hope they'd have, and may feel betrayed at times too. But one of the things that she said that stood up to me is that when people go low, we go high. Mm-hmm. And I really, I think that's what leadership, part of leadership really is having integrity and not succumbing to to the qualities and the character of the day, but being a light and being someone that's going to lead others upwards towards something better and bigger. And oftentimes we misconstrue leadership as a role. I'm a C-suite person at this company. I'm a manager here, and so automatically that just makes me a leader. But I don't think it's just about stewarding a position. It's really about bringing people upwards and elevating the conversation towards something bigger.
Yeah, agree. Speaking of leadership, there would be, I think, in our audience, and I'm just speaking for some of our clients that I know are developing people and wanting to develop leaders, probably their own leadership abilities, but in those around them. I know Kupu's a lot about building leadership, and a lot of it's hands-on, and it's through that. But are there other, for our audience that might be just in an office like this, like what would you say is a good things and maybe some good tactics that Kupu's employed or that you have in your own experience to help develop leaders? Yeah.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of great resources out there and great programs. The Omidyar Fellowship is a great one. Pacific Century Fellows. There's wonderful leadership programs and executive leadership programs that many of the universities have. And I think it's always good to be a learner. Even at times, I have a subscription at Harvard Business Review, and they have some really great write-ups and on leadership that we employ. We share with our teams as well too. So, so it's always important to be a learner first of all as a leader. I think for our programs, some transferable leadership skills is encouraging teams to get out there and serve. And sometimes we do that as a check off the box kind of thing, but I also think it's a great team building opportunity as well as a great character building opportunity too. And whether it be serving food to houseless families or coming out and serving in the environment like with Kupu, it's just something that's transformative, that gives depth to the organization. It's not just about the transaction that happens at work, but it's something that we see there's a broader community, and how can we bring that into the work that we're doing as well too, that we know that hey, even though we're doing accounting or law or something else, there's a dimension that we're part of this community, and not just serving our clients, but also that as we serve our clients and as we do the work, how can we elevate as well too. So I think that's important to give our teams opportunities to open their lens as to what's important. I also think that it's important for our leadership of teams to also take a season where they can step back, not only to let the teams come up, but one thing that I'm learning too, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, but I'm looking at doing a sabbatical for my own self for a period of time. And I think that it's important that you have succession developed in your team. That it's not just around one leader or a group of leaders, but there's other leaders that you can give chances to foster their own leadership and own responsibility. And then as a leader, that you're able to step away and reevaluate things critically, and not just inheriting the status quo. It's not just because it's been done like that for decades here that we're going to do it, but we also have to stay relevant to the world around us and in whatever industry we're in. And sometimes that means dying to ourselves as leaders. That means that we can't always have. It may not always be the way we anticipated it. And sometimes it may mean that we're not the right leader to take our organization to where it needs to go next, and just being honest with ourselves of what an organization needs, and that if we care more about the cause than stewarding our own pride or our own roles, then we know when it's important to shift, raise up, and sometimes step away.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, for sure, and definitely the give back stuff, because you're right. I think it's so important to get perspective kind of outside of the day-to-day, and that really helps to kind of put things in perspective. For you personally, are there any stories that you can think of where you're like, I learned this leadership lesson the hard way, or is there anything that you'd have on that? If not, no worries.
No, it's great. There's a lot of different leadership. I got a few stories. How long is the podcast? So one of the things that I learned early in my career is not to put as much weight behind what's behind or in front of someone's name as it is to look at their character. Mm-hmm. And you can have all the different, letters and qualifications, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a great hire. And sometimes we want to elevate our organizations because we were able to attract this type of talent and all that, which is wonderful. But don't do that at the expense of making sure that there's someone that has the same passion for your organization, the same type of aligned vision and purpose, because sometimes people succeed because they're really looking at their own success, and that's, so I've found that I can do a lot more with someone who's a learner and may not have the same qualifications, right, than someone who's knows everything and they've shown it. I think another thing that I've learned too is I guess looking for the diamond in the rough is my point in that one. Yeah. Don't just take things at face value as a leader.
Your intuition is usually your gut.
Mm-hmm.
It helps a lot.
Sure
you
does.
Look at a piece of paper and you're like, that looks so good.
Yeah.
But your instincts might kind of give you the second, ooh, is this right?
Yeah.
And you're I feel that same thing. Is like sometimes you just got to trust your intuition.
That's right. Yeah. And I think another lesson is if an opportunity is a test to test your restraint, or if it's an opportunity to move forward.
That's an interesting one.
And I think that I've looked back and we've had some of the challenges is because we've tried to push for things that maybe that was an opportunity to say, no, we're not ready yet, or no, this isn't the right alignment with us. I look back and things that we've been saved from. I remember there was a particular opportunity that had come our way, and this individual said, hey, this was on our for-profit side, and at Pono Pacific we had a special qualification, and which made it easy to contract with us. And at that time, this individual approached us and said, hey, we can do all of these things. We have this great relationship with these contracting officers. We can do all, you don't even have to do the work. We can, but it'll be lucrative, and it'll be a great opportunity. You can put it on your organization's resume and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. We ended up saying, after looking at it a while, we ended up ultimately saying no to it. Sometimes what looks too good to be true. But recently, this was about 5-6 years ago, and recently we saw that there was the same individual that approached us was indicted in federal court for all kinds of different charges. And I'm thinking, gosh, good thing we did not get involved in that. Mm-hmm. It would have impacted not only us, but by association, our nonprofit, and other things like that. So even if you have the best intent, and there's no one's intent to do wrong, you realize that you have to make sure that you're letting your integrity guide you. So sometimes it's good to say no to things, and then sometimes there's an opportunity out there, and you have to know. You have to be, I think, as a leader, be able to see, kind of like wayfinding that you hear Nainoa Thompson talk about. Sometimes you see that North Star. You can feel the currents. You can feel the wind moving in that direction. You may not be able to articulate it fully, but there's something that's saying, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing. And sometimes it's being able to trust that gut and saying, yeah, let's move forward. It seems like a risk. It might sound foolishness to other people, but there's something here that I can't quite articulate, but it's important, and we gotta do it. And sometimes that might mean that it's a costly thing too. And I know that, for us, with the center that I described to you, it took us 7 years because it took a lot of a time to bring people on board, and there are a lot of behind the scenes criticism, like, are they ever gonna get this done? I don't think they can really do it, and but it's been really successful, and all kinds of great events that are happening there, all kinds of great community projects that have occurred. But one of the things that really stood out to me is the other week I was sitting with a young man, and I asked him, so how how's the program been for you? We're all eating lunch together. And he said, it's been great. It's been life-changing for me. I said, oh, really? How so? He says, well, I'm not getting arrested all the time, for one. I'm like, oh, that's really great. Yeah. And I said, what's made the difference is, well, hanging out with different people. I was hanging out with my gang and with other folks before. And here you realize that you can have people that love you and care for you, and you don't have to be in that group setting. So he went away, and one of my staff said to me, he said, John, I just want to give you a little background on that young man there. Both his parents are on crack. He'll come home and they'll be high. He's seen a pipe in his living room for as long as he can remember. Not only that, he has a hard time making it here because his brother is incarcerated, and they have a 2-year-old, and his parents can't always watch them. So he's a caretaker for him as well too. Wow. And just for him to do this is like a huge life change. Huge, not just that he's different friends, but it's at home too. Mm-hmm. And I think something about that really touched me because I think just knowing that we're creating a space for a young person like that to change their life. It's great that the center's been financially successful and being able to do all these great things, but I think when you look at it, more importantly is the life change. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't stick to our guts in terms of where we feel that inner leading to go.
I love that story. That's great. And speaking of saying no and saying yes to the right things, I've heard someone once say no to the good things so you can say yes to the even better things.
That's right.
And that's clearly what happened for you guys, which is awesome.
Yeah.
What's new for Kupu? What's going to come up on the horizon? Any cool things we should be on the lookout for?
Well, the center's been one of the cool things that have been happening.
Sounds amazing.
And I invite your listeners to come out and check it out. It's on our website. We have great menus, even catering. American Savings Bank has done an amazing job in supporting us. They have events there regularly that they cater through us, and they have a whole area that they name on the exterior that it's been this really great event space too. So I definitely encourage folks to check it out. We have some really great programming that's out right now. Our summer programs are just wrapping up their recruitment, and some really cool things there. And our year-round program has also been really great. And we're looking at wrapping in educational opportunities. So there's more to come. Stay tuned to it. But we're looking at ways that young people can obtain some of their college credits while they're serving with us, so that a young person no longer has to decide, do I go to school, do I work, or I can't go to school because I need to earn an income. Here they're gaining, they'll get paid, they get health care, they'll child care if they have children. They also have the opportunity to take, what we're looking at potentially next fall, them having opportunities to take courses while they're with us. And the really cool thing is that we give out educational awards through our AmeriCorps funds. We have an Ed Award that gives out $6,000 to our year-round participants, and it'll actually cover the tuition for the courses that they're going to be taking while they're serving. Wow. So in terms of access to education, we're trying to blow the door open in terms of, look, you don't need to go away to have a great, amazing education. We'll help you get that first step in the door while you're serving with us, and all the skill sets necessary.
Very cool. All right. Well, I have a question of the day that I want to ask you. What is your best piece of leadership advice?
I would say that's a great question. Can I cheat and give you a A and B? I would say know yourself is a huge thing as a leader. It's so important. If you're going to steer a ship and you're not authentically aware of your own faults and strengths, then it's hard to lead others. And I think sometimes, and I know I have in my own life been unaware of how I'm impacting others. But leadership is not just about picking a point and going towards it. It's about bringing everyone with you. Right. So knowing that is so important. And the reality of the world, if anyone listening today has that propensity towards being a social entrepreneur or being social change maker, we know that the challenges in our world are big. From sea level rise and climate change to apathy to homelessness and food scarcity and all the different things that are happening in our world. And the problems are big, and we need to be bigger. And the only way we can be bigger is uniting. And we need leaders that are going to bring people together. But we need authentic leadership, people knowing their strengths and their weaknesses that can be able to bring people together. I think that's one. And the second is aligned with that is to know the questions that we ask ourselves. And through my Obama fellowship, we have a coach, an executive coach, and this is really great things that we got to talk through, is to know what questions go in our own heads as we evaluate things, and what are we leading towards, and making sure others around us understand those questions that we're asking. Is it about the organizational health? Is why we want to make decisions? Is it about long-term community impact? Is it about the bottom line? Is it about getting accolades? And some of them may or may not be good questions that we're asking ourselves, but be authentic and know the questions that we're asking. So it's all about that self-discovery, and also being willing to hear the questions that those that report to you are asking, what it's driving them, because sometimes their questions may be very different than the questions you have. You may have a question about vision and growth and where we're headed. They may just be having questions, how are we going to get this done?
Right.
And if those two don't line up, then the needle won't get moved. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm thinking back as you're talking to when you did, I watched you present to your team about a project that we were working with, and you were rallying. I mean, you're really good at bringing people together, and clearly that's a strong point for you. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Deena.
Yeah, great. The sun sort of came out.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Right.
And on that note, we'll end.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.